All right, so now it comes time to actually start writing, or at least outlining a bit more. Because what I like to do after we've filled out planning, research, quick capture, and when you're ready to start writing, you come in here, and this is where you outline the key points that you can start to fill in with your arguments, right? So in the intro, I always like to include a personal experience. Again, you'll probably have to write your newsletter as you go through this section of the actual curriculum a few times until you get the hang of it and can start to do it the way that you like, right? It's imitate, then innovate. You kind of have training wheels, and then you take the training wheels off and you struggle for a bit, and then you get better. You practice. Okay. So key points and outlines. So the intro in this case will be health and being dogmatic. So who am I talking to? People that want to get more out of life. This is kind of similar to what I've been talking about a lot, but for the sake of this, I would talk about, I could say something like, I've always been into health and fitness, especially if this is a part of my domain of mastery, health and fitness, or just well-being in general. I've always been into health and fitness. I remember when Jeez, I'm sorry, guys. This didn't even start happening until today. But I remember when I want to set the scene a bit more. I started out by watching certain YouTubers, and I'm just outlining here. Like, I can go in and fill in this and make it longer in the future. I started by watching certain YouTubers. I learned about flexible dieting, tracked my macros. And the thing with this is, remember this, right? If I don't talk about health a lot, I need to give people context. I need to teach it. I need to tell them about it from a beginner's mindset, right? I can't assume that they know what I'm talking about relating to health. So I'm going to have to explain briefly what flexible dieting is, explain briefly what macros are, and then I can go into, after years of doing this, I came across Ancestral Health, and I'll just keep it short, and started eating and posting about raw liver and the benefits behind this. Now, why is this important? I can go into the next section, which would be on giving context. We talk about giving context or painting a picture of a metaphor or something like that, right? So we're talking about something that I can conceptualize and use the visual behind. I could give it some interesting name, but let's just say closed-mindedness is a disease, right? And hell, that even I could name this, I could say, if we were still in COVID times, I could be the real virus that you should be afraid of, as the headline. And then going into this, I can pretty much look up here. I can talk about the problems of closed-mindedness. I can include the visual, and I can explain the visual. So I could say include and explain visual. And in this as well, I could imply goals. Crap. And then I could include some of the goals. And that could actually lead into, so let's take this, let's delete that, and then include the goals under why is it important, right? And then that will lead into closed-mindedness being a disease, include and explain the visual, and could also include the common perspectives here and there, like how, well, see, I could, so this could actually, so now what we're going to do, we'll use that here, and then we always end with actionable advice or steps or things or just a list that we can repurpose, right? So we're going to use, where is it? 5 things. And these can be better, right? Like you can change what these are and come up with your own. So highlight those, boom. And what do you know? You have a fleshed out article, right? And it's extremely unique. Nobody can replicate this. And if they do, it's copying, right? This is attributed to you. You're going to be the go-to person for them learning about closed-mindedness, them questioning everything. And you could even talk about right here, the importance of questioning everything, and then include the benefits. And this is just like if you want to get really long on like I love long form content. It's been a game changer for my brand and I love writing it, but you could keep this short and concise as well if you wanted to. And that's probably how it will be at the start if you don't have all of this firepower like I do. Now, what's going to happen is if you hit a roadblock with this, especially in the future, is you're going to go to your writing hub, you're going to go here, and you're going to use these to create unique perspectives, right? Because what you can do is if you don't know how to transition or you don't know what to include here, you don't know what to include here, then you can go to your research, you can look at your tweets, you can include the tweets, you can include a quote, you can use one of these, and these can be applied to anything really, right? So life enjoyment. So the internet has opened up the opportunity to do what you enjoy. You don't have to suffer anymore when creating your own career path. So you could talk about being open about the internet and the opportunity it presents. And then boom, you have an entire section ready to go. And as I talk about how you structure those sections is with the poll, the perspective, and the punchline, right? That's kind of how you structure them. But at the same time, you can use AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, action, or PAS, problem, amplify, solution. So you have the problems. You can just start with a problem to start a new section of your newsletter. You can go on to explain or amplify that problem with like what's holding them back from hitting their goals. Maybe a personal experience comes into that. All of these different things. I could even use this personal experience about like to start off this article. You understand what I'm saying? Everything that you have written so far throughout this entire course can be used as building blocks for any article if you understand how to transition and can see how to transition and see how you can connect that dot and the dots that need to be connected in between in order for you to connect those dots, right? So again, I want to emphasize practice here. Practice, practice, practice. It really helps. My first newsletters, garbage, absolute garbage, until I started practicing this method and creating my own system, and it got much easier, okay? So don't beat yourself up too much at first because it's not going to come easily. Your newsletters will be better than others and more unique because of this, but just know that it does take time. Just know that, okay? You have my word. But the next thing when it comes to editing, so now what you do after writing is you open up something like Hemingway. I have mine open right here, and you just start writing, right? Like I can't really help you with this part because I'm not going to write a newsletter on here. It takes an entire week. I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't make sense. And we're going to go over some of my favorite newsletters up here. But then you open Hemingway or Tweet Hunter or Google Docs, whatever you want to use, and then you start writing. I could literally start out with this, and then you just draft. You literally flood the page with all of your insights, and then once you have a really rough draft, you can go through it. You can turn on the edit mode in Hemingway. You can start to cut things down. Don't save. And you can come through here. So this is your checklist for editing, right? When you're ready to come through Hemingway itself and start editing, you read through these. So can you create a visual to help explain the process? We already did that, so yes. Are your sentences concise, grammar corrected, and understandable? So read through your thing and see if it's concise, see if it's understandable, see if it makes sense. Do you stick to the main topic, reduce going on tangents, and deliver what is promised in the headline? So the next one, does your hook target a big pain point or promise a big benefit while reducing the perceived effort of implementing your advice? Will your message be well received by the audience that will be seeing it? Is your writing separated with headlines, tweets, quotes, graphics, or other things? Do your sentences vary in length and impact? Does it read like music? Do you write to a fifth grader through metaphors and simplified ways of understanding? And then repurposing, so you can come up with thread, caption, LinkedIn hook ideas, tweet ideas for actual tweets. And this is what I would do when it comes time to actually write the thread or the caption or the LinkedIn post. And we'll go over how to write good threads. But the last thing you need to know is the headline. Now, there's a lot of debate about this in the writer's world, where it's like some people say write the headline first, so your writing can be focused around that. Some people say I like to write the headline after everything, because what a headline includes, and we'll learn this more later when we go over like writing hooks, because that's just a better way of explaining how to write a headline, is that you need to talk about the problem. You need to grab attention. You need to make it seem easy. There needs to be relevance. It needs to be relatable. And after you write all of this, then you come back and create the headline, right? And this will become easier when you learn about leveraging Twitter threads, because that is easier to conceptualize what makes a good hook or headline, right? So with that, start writing. Let's actually go over some of my favorite newsletter. So this one we've already kind of gone over, but I want to, how do I put this? I want to just go over like what happened here, and I want you to understand what's going on. So personal experience. I've noticed one pattern in all these people. What pattern? Focus, blah, blah, blah. I just add on some things that like I have learned and that I've studied and that I want to write about, right? And then I really like this quote. I have this in my Readwise. It's saved from the book Flow, and so I include it here, right? And then this sets the scene. So my intention with creating this newsletter is that I was reading this book, and controlled consciousness or contents of consciousness really clicked with me. I'm like, that made me understand something new. I need to write about this because I love talking about focus, and it just made sense to write something about it. So I started writing, and then I have to give context to content of consciousness, right? And so I give the metaphor of RAM, and this came after creating this visual where I talk about your attention being split and then being focused and fulfilled, because that's what this quote was made from, or I made the visual from this quote. And so I had to explain the quote in a way that made sense, and I'm good with computers, and so computers came to mind. And I'm like, that kind of, it works the same as RAM, or at least I can make it happen like RAM. And I've heard this so many different times where it's like 126 bits of information and clogging your performance and slowing things down. And I'm like, okay, yeah, RAM, computer RAM makes sense to have a metaphor there. And then I keep writing, and then 8 steps to reclaiming your focus. So then I just created these out of nowhere. It's like, okay, what would the steps be if I created them, or if I were giving myself advice? So you can go through and read this. It's all on my blog. But that's what I did, right? It makes sense. And then we already saw how I condensed this into a thread and tweets. And then we looked at this one as well. But you can see here, personal experience. Ever since I can remember, I've had the goal of doing what I love for a living. Isn't that what everyone wants? That's kind of funny because we were brainstorming that earlier. So maybe that was just at the top of my head. I talked about that. Now, why writing? So this is more so educational, right? Because most of my audience, I don't talk about writing too much. And I have to put myself in the shoes of the reader where will they understand? Like, why should they care about writing if they're not even following me for writing? So this is where I have to educate them, right? That's option number 3 that we go over in this module, is that you have to educate them and give them context on why writing is important. Why should they care about writing? What is writing? How do you write? What, how, why, right? And so I give my unique perspective behind why writing, and it's pretty much because everything is writing, right? And I actually got this from someone else's tweet, or at least it was some rendition of it. I forget who it was, but they're like, this kind of writing is writing, images are writing. And so I created my own, and it just made sense. And then 9 steps to starting a one-person writing business. So I just made these up, and that's really it. It's all about making it up. You don't have to be perfect first time around. And again, you guys saw how I condense these into threads and tweets, right? So the next one, this one was really fun for me. This one was actually a redo of one of my previous newsletters on the Fill Empty Use framework. And this one I wrote because of a high-performing tweet, the Fill Empty Use, which I include right here, right? That one did really well. So I'm like, I'm going to turn this into a framework, Fill Empty Use, and write about it. And it worked out really well. So introduction, personal experience. I've always had some form of aversion toward Western work culture, 8-hour work weeks, high pressure environments, blah, blah, blah. And this is while I was reading the book Rest. So again, another thing that is extremely important is to pretty much read and watch YouTube videos, flood your brain with the ideas that you want to write about and that you enjoy learning about and that you enjoy distilling and that you potentially have experience with. So you have more firepower to explain those things that you have experience with. So I pulled some of this stuff from the book and just worded it like I wrote it in my own words. But then I had a quote from the book that I was reading, and I used a metaphor or a comparison here where to help people understand more. And I know that a lot of people that are into health follow me. So I wrote about how focus and the gym are kind of the same. You don't go to the gym for 8 hours a day and expect to focus 8 hours a day. Like, you have to recover. You have to emphasize recovery. And so then my 3-step framework for productivity, and I go over each part. Fill your mind. There's subsections on how to do it. I went really long on this one. Empty your mind. And see how I'm plugging my stuff throughout here, right? 7 Days to Genius, 2-Hour Writer. And so I'm making sales along the way as people are going through this. But so another thing, we talked about how newsletters just like are better to plug, but people also share the newsletters. They say, oh my God, this is so good, and it gets more readers. It's not like someone does that for a lead magnet or a sales page. Sometimes, maybe, but it's just much more likely with newsletters to have more word of mouth marketing, right? So then use your mind. You can see what I'm doing here. But then I created the visual as well. Just had some fun with it. Where is it? There's a visual somewhere. I guess I didn't include the visual. I'm pretty sure I visualized. Yeah, you see this right here? I visualized the tweet. And I didn't include it here because I included the tweet. So I visualized this. And then the actual featured image of this post is like these 3 bars. But the next one, this one was really fun to write. This is the newsletter that really solidified the importance of visualization into my head. Even though it's just like a graph, like I started drawing things out, just messing around with it, scratching things out, redrawing, and it formed the entire basis of this newsletter. So, personal experience. This past month, I've realized a common theme in my life and the life of many others: obsession. Going through, and now this is concept, right? So there was like the context, there's metaphors, there's analogies, there's education in the middle section, and this one was a concept of my own. So the future career path is what I named this visual. And then I went on to kind of back it up and provide an argument for that. And so then from this visual, I can literally just break down each part of it for the newsletter, right? So pursuing your curiosity, which is curiosity, and then medium and the message. I talk about media and code. So media, code, brutal combo, build distribution, and build whatever you want. So you look at this, you got distribution. And throughout the newsletter, I'm talking about the relationships between all of these. That's what a lot of writing is relativism and relationships. Like, okay, here's one sentence. How do the subjects of that one interest, like, how are they impacted? What's their relationship with something else? How can you write about that, right? And that's a bit more abstract. It doesn't really help. You'll realize this. But then we keep going, making a fortune. So then I just give like actionable advice on like how they can actually start a business and start building leverage. So that one was really fun. How to finally stop caring what other people think. Again, personal experience. As a kid, video games fascinated me. Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. Why we become obsessed. So I decided to educate people on obsession. What is obsession? What does obsession mean in the lens that I want to talk about it in? And see, I'm including quotes throughout here that I've collected. I'm using a lot of stuff here. These were the ones where I was like super long and not really focused, but you can see where I'm going with this, where like I was piecing a lot of things together. I heard someone say like, you create your own reality, you operate within your own reality. That's the key to happiness, right? So I'm pairing a lot of things together here and like noticing the patterns, noticing the connections, and then bringing them together here in my own way. So when I think of the game of life, I decided to visualize it. And this is the reality that you create, or the little world of your own, and how you get there. So the way you do that is like vision, goals, priorities, creating your own character. This one dragged on and on. If you want to go through and dissect these, I would encourage you to just go to my site, look at a random article, and just start reading, right? That's how you learn to write and read, is by actually doing it. So I hope this was helpful. I want you to start writing, because the sooner you start writing, the sooner you'll learn and you'll make those connections, because you can't, how do I put, this is another abstraction that I want to write about soon, but it's like, if you're right here and the discovery that you're trying to make is right here, but you haven't taken action to light up the dots closer to that, then you're not going to see it. It's not going to register in your awareness. I talk about the unknown a lot. It's uncomfortable to take action, but you only see, like, think of holding a candle and it lights up a bit of space in front of you, but it only lights up so far. You can't see the potential discovery that you're going to make unless you start moving forward and actually writing until you discover it. And then you're like, oh shit, I leveled up, or whatever it may be. So start writing.